Today, we're doing something a little different. We're going to give an entire economy a health checkup. We're looking at India, one of the world's biggest economic engines, and we're going to figure out what its vital signs can tell us. Is its industrial heart beating strong, or is there maybe something to worry about?
So that's the big question, right? How do you take an economy's pulse? It's not like you can just walk up with a stethoscope. No. Economists have their own unique set of tools and their own vital signs they look for to see if an economy is really thriving or if it's maybe headed for trouble.
Okay, let's get into it. The first thing you have to understand are these vital signs. Think of them as key indicators, these specific, measurable things that give us a really clear picture of what's happening under the hood of a massive, complex economy.
Now, when we're talking about India's industrial health specifically, the focus gets really narrow, right down to its most essential sectors. You can think of these as the major organs of the industrial body. If they're healthy, the whole system is probably doing just fine.
And that brings us to what's known as India's industrial backbone. This is a group of just 8 industries, but they are so fundamental, so important, that they basically power the rest of the nation's entire industrial machine.
So what are these 8 industries? Well, we're talking about the real heavy hitters here. Things like refinery products, electricity, steel, and coal. And also crude oil, natural gas, cement, and fertilizers. I mean, this is literally everything from the fuel that goes in our cars to the power that lights our homes and the very materials used to build our cities.
And get this, just these 8 industries, this small group, accounts for a staggering 40.27% of India's entire index of industrial production. Let that sink in. That's more than 40% of the country's total industrial output, coming from just this one core group.
Okay, so you might be wondering, how on earth do we track the performance of something so massive and important? Well, it turns out there's a specific tool for that job. It's called the Index of 8 Core Industries, or the ICI for short. The ICI is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's an index that takes the performance of all 8 of those fundamental sectors and boils it down into a single trackable number. You could say it's the main diagnostic tool we're using for this whole economic checkup.
But here's a really crucial point. Not all of these industries are treated equally in the final calculation. A small change in one industry can have a much bigger impact on the final score than a huge change in another. And this concept is called weightage.
Just take a look at this table. It makes the whole concept crystal clear. See how refinery products have the highest weightage? Over 28%. That means their performance has a massive influence on the overall index. But then, if you look way down at the bottom, fertilizers are just over 2.5%. So what this tells us is that the health of the refining sector matters a whole lot more to this specific measurement.
And this chart makes it even easier to see. You can see right away how refinery products, electricity, and steel just completely dominate the index. Together, they make up almost 2/3 of the total weight. It's a really powerful way to visualize who the biggest players are in this core group.
Okay, so we've looked deep into the core of the system, right? But how does this specialist's report fit into the bigger picture? Let's zoom out a little bit, from this core index to the more general report on the economy's overall industrial health. And that big picture report is called the Index of Industrial Production, or IOP. Now, the IOP is a much broader indicator. It measures the short-term changes in production across the entire industrial landscape. We're talking manufacturing, mining, electricity, the whole shebang. In this slide, this is probably the best way to think about the difference. Think of the ICI, the core index, as the specialist's report. It's a deep focus dive into the most critical systems. The IIP, on the other hand, that's the general health summary. It gives you the overall status of the entire industrial body. You absolutely need both, but they tell you very different and very important things. So, okay, we've got all this data. We've got these different indices, these weightages, but why does any of this actually matter? Let's talk about the real-world impact of this industrial checkup, because it is huge.
It really all comes back to this one powerful statement. These industries form the backbone of India's industrial sector. And that's not just a fancy phrase. I mean, think about it. When your backbone is strong, the rest of your body can function. But if it's weak, well, everything is affected.
And that's because these industries create this incredible ripple effect. The ICI acts as a leading indicator, which means it gives us a sneak peek into the future of the economy. For instance, if steel production slows down, you know that soon construction projects will get delayed and car manufacturing might stall. Growth in these core sectors doesn't just stay there.
It spreads out, influencing countless other industries, supporting everything from jobs to our energy supply. And here's the bottom line. Its performance directly impacts the big numbers we all hear about, like GDP growth, inflation, and the country's trade balance. The health of these 8 industries really does tell us about the health of the entire economy.
And all of this leaves us with one final and really critical question. If these 8 industries are truly the engine of the economy, what happens when even one of those major parts starts to sputter and slow down? The answer to that question has consequences for absolutely everyone.